Hello, and welcome to episode 22 of the God Cells podcast. I'm Eric Marola. Today, I speak to Ben, an American who went to EmCell for the first time last year in August of 2024. I was also at EmCell at this time when I met Ben, when my wife and I were receiving our own annual anti-aging fetal stem cell therapy. I'm not currently actively working on any new documentaries about fetal stem cells. I have released two of them. The God Cells, released in 2016, my second documentary, Ukraine Fetal Stem Cell Pioneers, released in 2023, and a 2-hour, highly comprehensive fetal stem cell lecture that serves as a bit of a companion piece for my latest documentary. That was released in 2024. So when we head to EmCell in Kyiv, Ukraine nowadays, we do so for our own annual anti-aging and longevity therapy. And since it is now 2025, we are headed back there again this June. Our treatment days are June 16, 17, and 18 of 2025 this year. I met Ben last year at EmCell because, like this year, I announced to the world that I would be there, and inevitably, many people want to travel to Kyiv and get their own therapy while we are also there, which I find to be a lot of fun. I get to meet people from all over the world I'd normally not have an opportunity to meet, and Ben is one of those awesome people. Ben is in his late 50s and is a professional gymnastics coach. And as you will hear Ben describe, teaching gymnastics is a highly demanding job on the human body. Before receiving fetal stem cell therapy at EmCell, Ben was hoping to find relief from back problems, knee problems, which led to trouble walking, trouble running, trouble standing up too long, and as well as some circulatory issues, such as a degeneration of angiogenesis, the formation of new blood vessels. According to Ben, all of those things have been resolved after this therapy. Ben is so happy about the results, he will be returning to EmCell this June while my wife and I are also there. My upcoming therapy this year in 2025 will mark my 10th annual therapy. If I am not living proof that this therapy is safe, having it 10 times since 2016 and not ever feeling better, not sure what else can qualify it as such. If you or someone you know wish to join us this June in Kyiv, Ukraine, to receive fetal stem cell therapy, email me, eric@ericmarola.com. That's ERIC@ERICMEROLA.com. This will be my 5th time traveling to EmCell since the Russian invasion, and probably my 50th time traveling there since 2016. I can advise you exactly on what to do to plan this trip. You can take the same transportation as us, which will be a train with a private sleeper car to and from Kyiv and Warsaw. I have a special sort of arrangement to get private sleeper cars that are not available online. You can stay at the same hotel as us. I can show you around the city a little bit if you want. All of that fun stuff. June is a gorgeous time of year to visit Kyiv. And we always stay in the heart of the city where all sorts of amazing restaurants and sights to see are all in short walking distance. Kyiv is a very gorgeous city. So check me out at ericmarola.com or stemcellsmovie.com. Again, my email is eric@ericmarola.com. I hope you enjoy today's podcast with Ben.
Hello, Eric.
Hey, Ben.
How you doing?
Not bad. How are you?
Good.
Finally got a chance to catch up after many attempts.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be like real quick. Yeah, January, okay, and then a lot of stuff has happened. So
Absolutely.
How are you doing? How's everything with your situation there with with the fires and everything?
Oh, it was really close. It was so surreal. My wife was at work. My wife's a private chef, and she was sending me pictures from the kitchen window in Brentwood, and you could see the glow, and it was still daytime, and all the smoke. Right. And of course, I kept running out to my balcony, and as sunset hits, the glow was like so strong. It seemed like it was like 10 blocks away or less. But, in hindsight, I realized it was about a mile away. That just shows you how big the fire was. But we live in Santa Monica where we live. Our street was right literally on the edge. We were a half a block away from the evacuation warning. So we were just really fortunate with our placement in Santa Monica. But we'd spend so much time in the Palisades. We would go there. We would like to go there, and the Palisades, aside from just a beautiful neighborhood, I'm sure everybody knows now it's so famous because of the fires. Some of the most wealthiest people and celebrities live there. But there's this incredible view they could charge admission for that only the locals really are aware of, unless you're somebody that just gets word about it. We would have picnics out there, and you name it. It was just so shocking to have it just go poof, gone. I mean, just insane. But I mean, long story short, it's really funny. I haven't really shared this publicly. So my wife comes home from work, we eat dinner, and I'm just remembering how amazing the view from the Palisades is. And just sort of the journalist in me and the kind of crazy adventurer in me, I said, come on, babe, let's get in the car and drive to the Palisades. The view of the fire is probably going to be outrageous, and having no idea that the Palisades were on fire because the winds were so high. There's no air support or any air coverage because of the wind, so no one knew where what was, and it was so chaotic. It happened so fast. So we really got about a mile away from the Palisades before cops started blocking the road, and my wife was really nervous. And I finally I said, okay, fine, we'll turn around. And by the time we turned around, there was fire on both sides of us. Like, it was the dumbest decision.
Wow.
And it was pretty devastating. Honestly, in so many respects. But as far as me directly, fortunately, we just, while we could witness it, like with a front row seat, it didn't hit us. So,
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds. Wow. That's that. Yeah. I've had a moment in my life with something like that too. Pretty similar. So, but nothing that close with the death part. So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
With me, I'd love to share like a quick story with mine. Since I'm in gymnastics and everything, gymnastics coach, I had 96 Olympics. I was down there, and I was actually fortunate enough to be working the games. I was there for practice, and then I was actually stationed in Emerald, where the Olympic team was secretly hiding out.
I'm sorry, which team? Which team?
The U.S. team,
U.S.
gymnastics team.
Yeah.
And I saw one of the head coaches going by. I go, no way, what would she be doing over here? And then I kind of put it together that, that's where the team was hiding out. So, you just keep it hush-hush. So my friend, one of the other of my roommates, were staying there at the Emerald dorms. And he wakes me up because I'm getting ready to go to work at the practice site. And then I have to go to the competition site at the Georgia Dome. And he goes, Ben. And I was just out the night before with my friend. I says, let's call it a night real early and everything. And because we got to get up early. And she goes, okay, that's fine. And we were at the underground. And all of a sudden, my friend wakes me up at 3 o'clock. He goes, Ben, a bomb went off. I go, no, Bob, bomb did not go off, right? I said, they were bending around all over the place, checking bags and everything. There's no way a bomb would go off. And sure enough, I wake up about 4:30. I'm eating my breakfast, and it shows it on the news that a bomb had gone off. I go, no way. And that's the same spot I was going to be at with my friends, And so I get done with practice, and then I have to go to the competition site, and I'm going up the escalator, and I have my regular clothes on, not my uniform, but I have my ID inside my shirt. And also someone in black grabs my arm on the left side, grabs my arm on the right side, another guy, and then I see over my shoulder there's a third guy. And they go, excuse me, sir, you fit the description of the bomber. And I go, bomber? I go, oh, no, I'm going to work over there at the Georgia Dome. And this other lady who's in uniform, like I am, different color uniform, and she hears the whole thing. And I gently pull out my credentials, and I showed him. And they let me go. But I said, you can check my bag anyway. I let him check it. And he says, okay, sorry. And the lady's still freaking out, bomber? Because everyone was devastated about the bomb going off.
Yeah.
I go, lady, I'm not the bomber, That's okay. And I get to work, and I tell my coworkers, I said, I almost didn't make it to work here. They thought I was the bomber. And then I see on the news, Jewel, who is an ex-police officer, who they took as a scapegoat to appease the public, and arrested him. And I says, oh my God, that could have been quickly me, and no one would have believed that I was not the bomber. So that was pretty scary.
Wow.
After that day, I remember what my friend had told me, you can't believe everything on the news. And sure enough, when I got home, there's a lot of stuff I just didn't, it was not true with what happened,
Sure. You know what? That story is not identical, but I watched the movie called September 5 about the Israeli hostage situation at the Olympics, I think in 72. Yeah, it was like, yeah. And same thing. Like the news story was completely fictional about what really happened. Of course, the truth came out later. But yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah, and Kerry Strug winning the gold medal, and we're like, no, Kerry Strug did not win the gold medal. But yeah, if you look on today, like Wikipedia, I believe, still today, they'll show that she won the gold medal for the U.S. team. It's like, we already had won the gold medal. She didn't have to go, And it became a whole fanfare thing with Bella Caroli carrying her, in soap opera type TV shows and everything else. It became, just a moneymaker. That's all. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think our two stories is a perfect introduction to ask the next question. How do you feel about going to Ukraine again, which will probably be the fourth year of the Russian invasion, which is slowly evolved into the Russian/American invasion?
Yes, it is.
I don't mean to giggle. That's just how I react to these things, but yeah.
So, I've been watching it kind of carefully now, and, see the new administration talking about how to end it real quick, but I'm not liking, what I'm seeing here with backdoor agreements, with, Russia and not including Zelensky. And
yeah, not to mention that now the U.S. White House is blaming Zelensky for the war, calling Zelensky a dictator while a dictator invaded. It's just it's quite a spectacle. It's
kind of funny how they just turned that around, and I'm like, wait a minute, they're the good guys, not the bad guys. It's like. And part of us, we have to be blamed for it as well, because, with the Minsk agreement and all that stuff, the Budapest, all that stuff, we kind of went back on what our agreement was on that.
Oh.
And so, I'm not, once again, we're turning it around just to show the public like we're the good guys, but yet we did something bad as well. And we had a chance in 22 to, do the negotiations. With Zelensky wanted to, but no, we'll give you weapons and you can fight. And, otherwise this probably would not have started. So even though they already invaded in 2014, Crimea.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
But it looks like Russia, from what I can see, I don't know what type of news that you get. You probably get very good news, whatever branch that you go out to look for. But it looks like, Russia's not doing too well, and they're kind of retreating, and definitely the soldiers are not really into the fight, the Russian soldiers.
No.
And the tactics that the Ukrainians are using are very effective, and they're getting more support. The F-16s that they got last year seem to be really helping out a lot, which should secure the airspace. And also that did make me feel a little bit more comfortable last year when I knew that they were getting F-16s, when we were going into Kyiv. So.
Right. Absolutely. I see the same news everybody else does. And of course, I talk to, my Ukrainian friends who are there. They're, of course, extremely curious, me being an American, and like my perspective on the new administration and their attitude towards it all. Mm-hmm. And I just sort of have to shrug my shoulders and like put my hands in the air and go, I don't really know what to say about any of this. I mean, it's not even just this administration that's neglected the reality of what's happening on the ground. I'm not picking sides whatsoever, but when in 2014, when Crimea was annexed, the Obama administration basically turned a blind eye to that. And then, of course, during the Biden era, in my opinion, just standing up there and saying, Russia, you better not do this, blah, blah. That is no way to show strength at all. They basically just allowed it to occur. So both of the administrations did. And now the new one is just playing this circus act of, I think Zelensky said it best, living in a disinformation space. It's just, Ukraine can just never get a break. It's just incredible. And then, of course, a lot of Americans still don't understand there's a big, giant difference between Ukraine and Russia, and that the Ukrainians would probably rather fall on their sword than live under this Russian dictatorship. It's just such a complicated subject. But
no, I agree with that too.
yeah.
Yep, they do not want to go follow through the dictatorship. They've already been through that before. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why, I mean, aside from the fall of Soviet Union, but there's a reason why they became independent, and they were trying to become a more modern Western world with a genuine democracy, and I mean, unlike what Russia has been for so many generations. So yeah.
yeah. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it's my fifth time. A lot of people, it's funny because there's a handful of people that are already coming. And I haven't really made an announcement about this. I just put it on the website and a little Facebook post. When I release this podcast, I'll send out a newsletter to a lot of people and, also announce it. But the handful of people that are coming, except for you, of course, but excuse me, the people that haven't been yet, that's what I should say, the new ones. They're like, well, they're all of a sudden concerned about the news. And I just kind of politely said, well, the reason you're concerned about it because you're finally paying close attention because you're going to go. You haven't been paying attention. This has been going on for 4 years. And this is not like something that just happened in the last month or a few weeks. So it's kind of interesting to watch, see how people react to it. But, considering how powerful the therapy is, people are willing to do it. And again, I'm not nervous at all. I mean, I'll be first to admit that if things go really sideways, even up to the last minute before boarding the train, I'll be the first to say, guys, let's not go. But, I mean, I don't know. Ukraine is gigantic, 32 million people. It's not the population of Canada with the landmass of Texas. It's not an easy thing to just take over. And the biggest thing I think anyone have to worry about is actual Russian troops anywhere within like 5 to 10 miles of us. That's more dangerous than any bombs, frankly. So, and that's not going to happen. They're hundreds of miles away at this point. So, yeah.
How do you feel about with Belarus, if he's going to start using Belarus as
He's kind of always done that. I mean, he used Belarus as a launching pad for the war itself. I mean, frankly, I think if Hungary was there instead of Belarus, he'd use Hungary. I mean, because Orban is a big fan of Putin as well. I just think that's a part of it. I think that the Belarusian and Hungarian leadership, they're just scared of Putin, and they're going to do whatever Putin says. And who knows what kind of deals Putin makes. But I think Putin works out of fear. He instills fear in everybody, with like the literal, I'll throw you out of a window if you don't do what I say, right? So I'm sure that's what Belarus's situation is, just to look at it kind of generally from afar. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
I'm just worried about, hopefully we don't do anything that we pause things to allow him to regroup and retrain soldiers. As much as I feel bad for the Russian soldiers, because I watch the videos and I can see them, and also the North Koreans and everything, they're dying.
Yeah.
I just don't want to see anyone dying. That's bad. Yeah, you just don't want to have that where he'll just like wait and then he'll gather his forces and then come back stronger, because that's what he does if you look at past histories.
Yeah, I think that's inevitable anyway without a whole, I know this is never going to happen, but in a perfect scenario, it's like, okay, Russia, we'll give you the land you've taken. We're putting Ukraine instantly into NATO overnight. That's it. And then, of course, everything would stop unless he wants to take on the whole world. But I mean, that's what Russia does. I mean, that's what they're going to do repeatedly. That's why Zelensky is so adamant about security assurances, because, I mean, yeah.
Originally, I was hoping that the fact that I thought Ukraine didn't want to be part of the NATO, and it was like, okay, if we sign an agreement saying that they won't be part of NATO, because that's the part that he was, Putin was probably scared of, is having those things. When you have a NATO alliance, it's required that you put those, missiles, defense systems in that country once they become NATO. And he doesn't want that on, his back doorstep, basically.
Well,
and
yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, come on, look at Finland. That's like the most gigantic portion of his border, Putin's border, and is now NATO. So, I mean, this NATO argument, in my opinion, is moot as far as him being scared of NATO. I mean, he just basically turned Sweden and Finland into NATO after he attacked. It's incredible. I think it's just
But he definitely has to be out of the country, though. There's no way that they're going to accept the fact that he's there. So,
I'm sorry, say again?
I said Putin's definitely going to have to be out of the Ukraine. He can't be whatever territories that he's occupied, he definitely will not be able to keep, for agreement of any sort.
Sure.
So,
I mean, I think at this point, I don't know what's going to happen. To be honest, this is the first time I'm just like, because we don't have an administration that is dealing with reality, I guess is the best way to say it. And so I don't really know. I really don't. I think anything is game at this stage. I really have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It is late February, and it's June. We will be there. So March, April, May. You're talking about nearly 4 months. So much can happen in that period of time.
It's true.
So yeah.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So there's gonna be a lot. So we'll get to discuss more about that, I guess, later.
Yeah. But I think people listening to this, especially newcomers that are thinking about going, I think it's important for them because you've been there during the war. This is my 5th trip during the war, and it's one thing to be interested in the therapy itself and learning more about people's experiences with it. But now you have this new added element, this Russian invasion on top of it all, which just adds to the more questions. It creates more questions. So
to put people more at ease. So when I first got there, yes, I was a little nervous. You had mentioned about the whole thing about, being like the size of Texas and everything else. And it is a big country. And so, I'm going from Poland, and I did take the wrong train, by the way. I did not get the sleeper car. I thought I had. So I was on a regular train part. And I'm coming into Ukraine. And it was just normal, nothing. You see beautiful fields out there, sunset or sunrise in my case. And then I arrive into Kyiv. And then once we get out of the train station, I'm coming out and the city looks fantastic. There was, I think the driver showed me probably the early parts of the war, like there was like a bombed out vehicle there, but that was like, old, but the rest of it was just a vehicle itself, like none of the damage to really the buildings or anything like that. Everyone was just walking around and everything was like normal life. And the place that I had stayed at the, I think it was the Favor Park.
Favorite Park.
Favorite Park. And you got kids out there, they're roller skating and doing their bikes. It's right by the river. And everyone's out there just enjoying it. I felt perfectly at peace. It was great. And I had a wonderful time while I was there. So at that point, when I came in with the train, I think my fears kind of went away. And then when I got to see, when I was driving in, the guy was just explaining a little bit, how the situation was. And I felt perfectly fine. And that was when things were really more heated up, I think, than it is now, because like Ukraine has more control of the situation than it did back then. So they were just getting the F-16s at that point. So
sure, yeah, you really hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's when people look at the news and they see the bombed out buildings, and you're looking at far eastern and southern Ukraine. And of course, and you look at something like Gaza, yeah, I mean, Ukraine and that part of the country, that's what Russia has done to it. It looks like Gaza. But when you're in Kyiv, I mean, just to try to put it in perspective, imagine like a big city. I don't want to say as big as Manhattan, but just like a huge city like Charlotte or Atlanta or Miami, where people, normal lives, all modern everything, very professional people running around, families, blah, 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 that happens to be under threat, It's, yeah. So, no, Kyiv is one of my most favorite cities. I've spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe in general, and Kyiv is awesome. I've never had a bad time there. It's got such character, and it's got a magic to it. So yeah.
Yeah, I always find the news always blows it out of proportion. So like for me, I got family in Brazil. I would hear about certain things going on. People would be a little scared. It would even get me a little scared. And then I go to Brazil and I'm like, oh, it's perfectly fine. They just kind of blew it out of proportion. It's not what they say it is on the news.
Yeah, it's kind of the news's job because they need viewers.
It is.
They need people to tune in,
Right.
It's funny, just like NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. Nothing against Lester or whatever, but my wife and I sometimes will just watch the opening because they give you the summary. And like, do we want to watch this tonight? And it's just like, death, destruction, chaos, destruction. And it's just what, so it's just how it goes. Yeah.
It's kind of comical when they do the news at times, because they try to sell you a narrative. Oh, okay. So, yeah. What else? I got there. The hotel was great. And the food was fantastic, I have to say.
Yeah, always.
Much better than we have here, the quality. And I'm usually one to eat a little bit more whole plant based, that type of stuff. But I had some meat and everything there and all that type of stuff, and it was delicious. I felt great. So
you went to the Georgian restaurant around the corner from the favorite park, yeah?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
that was
cool.
one of the places. Yep.
Yes.
And then there was the other one next to it.
So you and I were there last August, right?
Yes, it was August.
So yeah, as I've said, I think I probably said then, because I spent so many years making 2 documentaries about them. And now, I think kind of my documentary work, at least for the moment, is not, I wouldn't say finished forever, but I've done a lot of work covering them. And so ever since, I just want to go back every year for my annual therapy and my wife's annual therapy. And especially now, since the war, I'm just very happy to just invite people, because I would do that anyway when I was filming, and just because that's how I would get people on camera. It's just like, come on along. And even before the war, people just felt more secure if I was there, and now even more so because of the war. But yeah, I was there with a big group. I think there was like a dozen of us, and you and I barely got a chance to spend time. We met each other in the salt room finally, when they gave us a little break in the salt room. Do you mind reminding me? I know you're a gymnastic teacher, and I think it had something to do with overall athletics. But I would love to hear why you initially wanted this therapy, and of course, continue on with what it did for you and why you want to return a second time for the following year, this year.
Okay, so yeah, I got some high level kids, spotting some skills and everything, and I just noticed that my mobility was, a little bit of compromise. It hurts, like you turn a certain way or have to move. If a kid does something that's not correct, you got to be quick to, catch them.
Yeah.
And that allows them to keep their confidence in what they're doing, so that you keep them safe and everything. And I was noticing that I was having a little bit of a hard time, like if they did something a little weird, and also, spotting them into the pit, also I would be falling in the pit, and I just couldn't react like I know I could react and be safe. But luckily they were going into a pit. So I was like, oh, this is not good. And if you're spotting every day, your body doesn't get a break. So, your shoulders are starting to hurt, your knees, your hips. I says, this is something that I was, looking at for 10 years when I was originally going to get this from my dad. Didn't get the chance to do that. Then it was my mom. I says, okay, I guess I'm the one that's going to be going. So that's when I had contacted you. And then just to feel a little bit more confident. And I went down there and I was having back problems too. So my back was giving out each year, I noticed. And that was a problem. So then I was having a little bit of trouble walking, and then I couldn't run. Once in a while I can run. It depends on the day. So I said, okay, it's time to go. And once I went, I noticed that right away my back felt fantastic. Another problem I was having was angiogenesis. I needed some more, blood vessels with my fingers. My hands would get cold, or my arm would get kind of numb, right? If you slept on one side, it would just kind of just be tingling. Mm-hmm. And so I noticed the first day that I got it, they did the detox, and then they gave me that first initial injection of stem cells. And once I got the fetal stem cells, I went probably only a couple hours right after I got back to my hotel. My hands were getting warm. My back felt fantastic. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this is really working really fast. And I
don't want to make you lose train of thought. Forgive me, but I want to just interject and say that please hold on to that train of thought if you can. But what you got on the first day, and what you get every day, is the amongst a lot of things, but is the endothelial cells. The endothelial cells build new capillaries and strengthen your existing blood vessels, and that is why. And they work real fast, and that's why you had, especially the improvements in your hands. I just wanted to inject that. So keep going. Sorry. Yeah.
Yep. So. I'm just amazed by it. I'm doing a little video about how I feel and everything. And then the next day comes and I go in, they ask me how I slept. I says, well, I really didn't sleep that well because I had so much energy. I had pretty good energy before, but I'm like, now I have too much energy, and I know I have to get my sleep because that's healthy for you. Mm-hmm. And just because we got all that energy, I think you had someone like Lee you had interviewed one time. She had the Hashimoto's, mm-hmm. and she talked about, I have so much energy. And I was like, that was so true. I had so much energy. I couldn't really sleep that well. I think by the second or third night, it was a little bit better. I was able to calm myself down, but my hands were like so intensely warm, and my feet, it kind of kept me up at night too, because again, I had those endothelial cells, growing in the blood vessels, and they were actually, dilating and getting warmth into my hands and feet. So, that's basically it for that part right there.
What's interesting too about that is that, because I've met, I don't know, I'm guessing I've conversed with at least 100 people, probably more. I haven't really kept an actual database of everyone I've spoken to, but everybody is different. Some people sleep like a rock after like the first or second day of therapy, and other people have the experience that you have. What I mean by like a rock, they're like, I haven't slept that good in years, and other people are like, I couldn't sleep at all night. And like one of the most remarkable ones was one of the people that helped finance my documentary, a few of them, even before I got into this, she was nearly 90, and she's since passed, but I think she died at 93 or something. But I took her to EmCell back in 2017, I think. I was still working on. No, I finished I was working on the next one, and she flew me first class. I mean, it was just me and her, because like I gotta do this, because she's been basically one of the reasons why I've been able to finance these movies. One of the people that have helped me do it, and so she was like knocking on my hotel door like at 3 a.m. Like, I can't sleep. I've just never had so much energy. Anyway, it's just interesting. It's all. I don't know. Yeah, it is funny. But for people listening, it's funny. I don't know if it's funny, but it's just everybody has such a different reaction during the 3-day therapy. I don't know if part of it's psychological or if it's just, who knows, because we all are different weird soups of biology, and we all react differently to things. But yeah, it's interesting to hear that you had that much energy.
I think the big part was, just the warmth I was getting on my hands and feet. That made it a little uncomfortable, so I had to keep my feet out of the sheets, and that made it more comfortable, or, make the room a little cooler, and then that was fine.
It makes me wonder too. Forgive me. Can I ask your age?
I am 57.
Okay. Wow. You look great, by the way. I'm 52, but you're also a really tall man, right? I mean, if I recall correctly. Yeah. And it's just interesting with because you have long extremities. It has a long distance for your blood to go to your hands and of course your feet. And it makes me just wonder, like, you guys probably got used to the temperature being less there. And then with this huge like injection of all your blood vessels being revitalized so quickly, and all this blood was going there more than it had for so long, it probably just felt hot to you, but it's just normal. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was normal. I know, because I've known that my hands would get cold, over the past years and everything. So it was just getting worse as I was getting older. But the big sign was the fact that, when you're sleeping on your side and all of a sudden your arm is going numb, or you're holding your phone, let's say in bed, and you're looking, and all of a sudden your arm is hurting and then also tingling, that actually went away. So, not a good habit to be doing at bed, but I just noticed that pain went away.
Yeah.
I noticed now, like, if I was moving, it took about maybe like a month, I would say, before I really trusted my body, I would say, because I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling any pain. But is it going to come back? I'm not sure if my legs are going to kind of give out or not, and then sure enough, it's not. Like, I'm bending over, I'm doing stuff, and everything's like just rock solid, like bulletproof, and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing feeling.
It is an amazing feeling. And did you ever hear the story about skateboard and my Achilles heel, for example?
No, I did not.
Well, it was like after my second therapy, I guess. I felt so good. Because I felt just so good in general after the first therapy, obviously, just like yourself. But I live in Santa Monica, and so there's the Santa Monica boardwalk along the beach. And I used to skateboard when I was a teenager. Nothing crazy. I didn't like ride half pipes, but I just, and I just found this like spontaneous urge. There was a skate shop in my neighborhood, and I bought one of those long boards, and I would just take it and just go all the way from Santa Monica to Venice and back on the longboard. And I would just, because it's flat, it's easy, and I would just slam my foot onto the concrete. This is after like the first weekend of riding this, by the way. And, to keep going, because there's no hills, you have to keep working at it. And it's been so long since I've skateboarded. And frankly, when I was a teenager, I never hurt my Achilles heel by that act. And so about a few days after this whole weekend of doing this, essentially, one day I would do it by myself. One day my wife rode her bike alongside of me. Anyway, my Achilles, it was about I don't know, 9 to 10 months into the therapy. So it wasn't like as soon as I got back. And I completely blew out my right Achilles heel. It was all swollen. I was hobbling around, and I was just miserable. And so luckily, I wasn't sure if the therapy was going to knock this out or not. So it was a couple of months of this. And it was kind of getting better, but not really. And it was kind of worrisome. I was like, oh my God. And I started researching and talking to others and maybe you have to have surgery because you really messed it up. And the swelling never went down. Anyway, so I get to the clinic and I show it to them and they go, ugh. And I said, well, and I like everybody, they assume that you need a local injection. And even I fall victim to that. So can you just inject, the connective tissue cells right in there? I said, Eric, you made the first documentary. You're working on a second one. Like, that if it's this swollen, we're not going to do it. And that wherever the blood system goes, the cells are going to travel. We'll give you more connective tissue cells because of your Achilles heel. But, don't you remember? Every 3 minutes, your body circulates the blood. And I was like, okay, you're right. Long story short, within a week or two, but really within days, it started feeling better. Within a week or two, it was completely gone. Swelling gone, walking normal, phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah.
And what you're really describing is also one of the things I love about it. And I, like in college, I went to the gym relentlessly. And as I got older and living a professional life, not being a gym teacher or gymnastics teacher, it's easy to get lazy with exercise. And so, but since I started doing this therapy and it giving me more energy and anyway, I have a gym very close by, walking distance. I was going to the gym. I still do constantly. I try to go 5 days a week. Like after last August, when you met me, I don't know, the first time you met me, I was like one of the better shape I've been in a while as far as muscle tone, et cetera. And then when the therapy, that one kicked in, I was really pushing myself at the gym hard. And I was really lifting weights, like bench pressing more than I should have, but it wasn't so much that as bad form. And I developed what is essentially tennis elbow in my right arm. And so I had to stop. And anyway, my point is that it healed a lot faster than I think it was supposed to, based on research and physical therapists and seeing and talking to people about it. Because I did go to doctors and specialists about it. I was really blown away at how fast it healed, given I didn't go back to the gym and keep making it worse. But it is interesting because a lot of other people in our 50s, they are constantly complaining about aches and pains. And I just kind of have to go, I don't really have that unless I do something stupid to hurt myself. And I think it's attributable to this therapy, honestly.
Yeah. I have to agree because I think, my friends, when I was in my 40s, used to complain about the aches, pains, or they got, blood pressure medication or stuff for their heart. And I'm perfectly fine. Because, one thing is I've always tried to eat healthy as much as possible. And then when I turned 50, then I really had to relook at my eating habits. And I changed that. That made a big difference. But still, you're getting older, you're losing stem cells, and your body's just not healing as properly. And plus, I get a lot of wear and tear with the stuff that I do in the gym. If you're constantly spotting, you got to okay, I got to do the other side, because if I do one side like I've seen other coaches do, they literally tear their labrum in the shoulder, and or they have rotator cuff and they have to get surgery. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of weird because when I was going this summertime, we already had one of the other coaches that I have, he has MS. And I was trying to, he ended up getting some actual stem cells, believe it or not, here in the United States, because it was helping, because he literally tore the muscles on here and he was showing me. And he had one of those back type systems on there to help it heal. Mm-hmm. And with the stem cells, I couldn't believe that he was back as soon as he was, because I was thinking, oh no, he's going to take a little while, because again, I was thinking the fetal stem cells, much, much better, much stronger. Mm-hmm. But he got a pretty good results on that. Just imagine if he had fetal stem cells, how much better he would.
Yeah. In the United States, I'm sure he got mesenchymal, which is basically what you can get everywhere. And mesenchymal does remarkable things for muscle regeneration when it comes to sports related injuries, to overgeneralize. It's great. It's just not going to do anything. Not going to do anything for anything organ specific.
Exactly.
But yeah, and that's why you hear when Mel Gibson took his dad to Panama, and then Joe Rogan always talking about it and how he avoided surgery, because mesenchymal cells are fantastic for to overgeneralize, again, sports related injuries. But if you want to help out your inner organs, you need an organ specific cell, and that's where fetal comes in. And of course, with mesenchymal versus fetal, when it comes to the regenerative tissue cells, a 7 to 11 week old cell versus spinning your own, whatever, 60-year-old cells. It's sort of apples and oranges as far as its potency. But I'm happy to hear that. I'm really happy to hear that this person with MS did really well with the muscle regeneration. But did it actually help his multiple sclerosis itself?
No, because here's the thing. So once he did that, at least he got that part healed, because he was actually healing the skin that they filleted him. Literally was cut open and filleted like a fish. And then once that finally kind of healed, he was back in a few months. And I'm like, okay, I was still a little worried about him and everything, because he was still having a little, problems. I'd be the spotter. He'd work on coaching, so I'd be like the second. I'm just there to help out. And that's all I wanted to do in the role. I was kind of helping everybody in the gym. And so he ends up tearing his bicep. And he was spotting a little kid on Giant. And I go, oh, no. I was like, take it easy. And then it happened. And I tried to tell him, I says, I was trying to give him a little bit of tip about, probably stem cells, fetal stem cells, that type of stuff. And he didn't really want to hear about it. Yeah. I'm like, I don't think you realize that the first stem cells that he had, even though it was just for his leg, healed him up tremendously. So a lot of people are still stuck with the allopathic medicine and, the medication that you take. And that's really not doing anything for you. And so finally, July comes after the second time it happens. He goes, I think I'm going to focus on my health. I said, that's a good choice. But I didn't get into the topic about the fetal stem cells. I just let him find his own way. Maybe later on he might reach out to me about it, and then I'll discuss it with him and everything. Then we had another coach who had also a bicep problem too. And I was also coaching with her as well. So she was out, so I was the helper on that. So we had two coaches out, and then we had two more coaches who had surgery done for their back. There was something, she had with her back. But she was only out for like a day or two. That was okay, because I was getting worried. All these coaches are falling apart. They're about my age, and they're not getting healthy. And I'm the only one that was actually feeling better, when I just got done with the stem cells. And here I am running around the gym, no problem. And everyone else is like just sitting down, they can't move, and they're hurt. Yeah. So it has done an amazing thing. So I would like to ask you, how is it when you took your second round of stem cells? I'm really looking forward to that when I go back, because I'm still feeling fantastic. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering how much better I'm going to feel. Just my, I guess, the skin, your joints, and everything. How was that for you?
Yeah, I'll answer that, but I'm going to, as always, because I'm a storyteller, I'm going to give you a little bit longer answer. So I want to talk about the first and into the second. So when I was filming the God Cells, without getting too much in the weeds, but I started out, one of the guys who pointed me at this and agreed to partially finance it, or at least get it going, there was this guy in Mexico who I later found out stole it from the Ukrainians back in the 90s, blah, blah, blah. So I started out there until I figured that out, which led me to Ukraine. Anyway, in that process, all these people that I met, both in Mexico and meeting them in Ukraine, they started asking me, Eric, have you had this therapy? And I said, no. It didn't even occur to me, to be frankly. I was just trying to cover this technology and how it helped people. Because I was kind of programmed with my previous movies covering cancer patients with some of these. There's actually just one cancer/biochemist, cancer doctor who had this really innovative therapy, still does. And I was following cancer patients. So I luckily haven't had cancer and didn't ever have cancer then. So I wasn't really thinking I would be a participant in the actual movie. So I was kind of, it was kind of like this aha moment when everybody more than one person kept saying, why haven't you had the cells? You're making a movie about this and you're not going to get the cells? And I thought to myself, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm realizing at this point how safe it is. So after the first one, I couldn't believe the results. Kind of like, I think it's very noticeable. I will admit, because I took really good care of myself and I felt great all the way up into the second therapy. I didn't notice as much of a dramatic, huge jump like the first one. And they did tell me about that. They said, they also looked at my diagnostics. And so, but while it did, there were certain things that always happen that are, happen for a little while, then kind of taper off, like your libido. I will say, I felt energized and I felt all those things. But as far as this sort of night and day difference, like a switch, it wasn't the same the second time. But also but don't let it discourage you, because if you think about what they're doing biologically to you, if anything, if they can keep you where you are now with perhaps even a slighter improvement, that's success. You know what I mean? Because we're aging, and you're also doing a very physically demanding job where you're aging by natural degeneration with aging, but you're also, as you said and you described, you're doing a lot of things that can really wear on your body physically. And this is just keeping you up to par. So yeah, to be perfectly honest, I mean, it has been a while because this is my 10th therapy this year, but I do remember thinking, wow, that wasn't nearly as dramatic as the first one. And I had conversations with them, and they basically explained just what I explained to you, and that, if you're already doing well, and you get a follow-up, it's only just going to keep you there. And like, here's another example. When I first got the therapy, my wife so I'm 52. I was in my early 40s. So, wow. So it's 2025. I first got it in 2016 for the God cells. That's nearly a decade ago. And my wife, being 7 years younger, I was considering having her do it because I thought it'd be interesting if we both did it. And they did diagnostics on her, and they flat out said to her, "You don't need this therapy." They said to her because she was still in her 30s, And my wife, she's a private chef, like organic, holistic chef. Like, she takes seriously good care of herself. They're like, your diagnostics are like spotless. They're like, you can have the therapy, but I don't think you need it. And it wasn't until she was in her 40s that she started getting it, just as a side note. Anyway, but I don't know why I got on that tangent, but yeah. So, I mean, I hope you see and notice something, but just know that if you don't, that what this is doing biologically to you doesn't change. And, the way it's reinforcing your inner organs, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, your liver, and all of that. And of course, your endothelial cells, and in keeping those things in tip top, not to mention your neurological system, because you're getting neurological cells as well. Right. And it's also something too, like, you're bringing back lots of memories. Like, I remember hearing and talking to the lead CEO, the lead scientist, about this exact question, where she talked about how a patient gets the therapy, has amazing results. They come back a year later, get it again, and they don't really notice anything. And they complain. Well, I don't, and then with enough series of questions and showing them the diagnostics and saying, you're doing so darn well, so much better than you were before you walked in the door the first time. And this is bad? You're complaining? It's like, so yeah.
I see it as reserves, extra, because I was also building up reserves too. You get your telomeres and everything else.
Yeah.
That's also going to be lengthened. So I do see that as a buildup of stem cells in my body. I guess the other question I've had too, because I've had this with another doctor we've talked about before. I don't think I'll mention her name or anything, but I remember she was saying that, umbilical cord, stem cells are the best. And I had to respond. I go, not really the best. I says, if you really wanted the best, it would be, the fetal stem cells. She says, well, I'd be willing to, I didn't even say that at first. I says, I think you know what the best would be, but you haven't mentioned it on here. Usually you're always putting it down and you're saying it's unethical. And then I says, if you really think about it, is it ethical to take umbilical stem cells that, when the baby is born, they immediately clamp the cord, and that pulsing cord is actually giving the blood back and the stem cells back to that baby is not getting. So basically, if they let that run through, they wouldn't really have that much stem cells in the cord itself compared to what they normally have. And, is that ethical to kind of rob the baby of that? And I says, here we got fetal stem cells. As much as, no one wants to have, that life taken away, these are abortions done by people for whatever reason they had the abortion. So having that as biological waste, just like you would have for umbilical cords, would not be considered unethical to let that go to waste. You get 40 to 50 million, abortions, according to the WHO, right? That's a lot.
Yeah.
So
what was her response to that?
The funny thing is, there was no response. I didn't get a response from her.
It is interesting. Did I interrupt you?
Well, I'll just say that, as soon as I hit that thing, I think it was like a year old when she had that thing on there. And I said, she's probably not going to respond to it because it's an old thread. And I got a response the next day. I'm, willing to, a discussion if it's mesenchymal stem cells or if it's, let's see, your own stem cells, allogenic, not allogenic, but autologous stem cells, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was going to have that you don't want to do that. And then if they're expanded cells, that's not good either. And I said, I agree with all those points that you made right there. But with fetal stem cells, definitely far more potent. And she always has that argument about these stem cells that are trapped in the cord are more potent. They're almost like embryonic stem cells. And I said, there's no way that that's actually the age of of being trapped in time. They're just as old as the baby being born at that moment. So, I've even asked EmCell about that too. They go, yeah, that's not happening. So,
well, yeah, I have to respond to this. There's so many tentacles to this. So, first of all, to say umbilical are the best, okay, best for what? When it comes to all mesenchymal cells, that if you want to help a sports injury, speaking only about mesenchymal cells, sure, umbilical are the best. Are umbilical the best for a neurological disease versus it's irrelevant because they won't help a neurological disease. And then it comes to what's the ethics. What is ethical is a completely subjective opinion. I mean, what is ethical and what is unethical? One might say, is it unethical to throw away this fetus and not let people be helped by it? Is that not unethical, right? And then go talking about unethical, is it not unethical to promise someone with a neurological condition, like a family with a child with autism or a person with multiple sclerosis, and offer them mesenchymal cells when they have no ability to transform into a neurological cell to help the neurological system? Is it not unethical to give someone false hope that an umbilical mesenchymal cell will help this person with a neurological condition? I mean, it's just, unfortunately, it's just they don't understand it. And of course, what really, and I don't know if you saw my lecture, and I kept having to show that on screen so many times. Umbilical is one cell type. Fetal, you're getting nearly 24 organ-specific cell types. It's not even about one's better than the other or more potent than the other. It's apples and oranges. I mean, oversimplify, like one is an airplane, one's a bicycle. Good luck riding a bicycle from New York to London. It's not going to happen. I mean, right? Right. And so it's kind of like with mesenchymal with some of these complicated or, actual neurological or immunological diseases. So it's just a lack of understanding. And I don't fault this doctor, but she just hasn't taken the time to understand it. And it's not really her fault because there's no reason for her to understand it because it's not in any textbooks. It's only been,
and it's not something that you can do here in the U.S. It's only can be done in Ukraine. So I even invited her, and I hit those points that you mentioned there. I just didn't talk about that, because it is got organ specific. And yes, the mesenchymal stem cells, MSCs, can do help overall the body to help function better, but specifically when it comes to that organ, it's not going to be able to, help that organ itself or a neurological part. But I said, what? I says, you should really, before you keep knocking it and everything, you should really go to, Ukraine. I didn't name the place on there because I didn't want everybody saying, whatever. I was trying to be kind of respectful and all that. But if she had gone to EmCell, she could see like the techniques and understand. I says, they're the pioneers. They've been around for a very long time. You've only been doing this for like 8 years, so there's a lot to learn. Yet she's teaching doctors, about how to do stem cells here in the U.S., which is okay. But, it'd be great if you can push the needle since you're already a stem cell doctor, somehow get some footing here in the United States about the knowledge about this, and it'd be fantastic if we could get that actually here too.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's going to happen.
And
I even pointed out the CERM thing about how they even mentioned about the fact that if their choice of type of stem cells between umbilical cord and everything else, they would say that they would do fetal stem cells, so.
Yeah. I mean, since you have her email, did you ever think about just sending her my lecture or my latest movie just to see if she'd watch it? I asked because when I made those, I really kept the doctor and scientist in mind, like thinking, I know that some of them will watch this. I was just going to be curious to know. I mean, obviously it's a big ask to have someone sit down for an hour and 30 minutes or even 2 hours. But if they really care about it, I mean, it's a perfect exposure. It was like a huge, many, many years of my life to collect all this information and distill it into less than 2 hours, even with the scientist in mind. I don't know. It's an idea if you wanted to give it a shot, but.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I think I mentioned to you who it was before in the past, and you go, "Oh yeah, I've actually talked to her and everything." So.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you want me to say that or not. So I would
text it to me afterwards because I don't want to
Okay.
throw anyone under the bus because it's not really.
No, I don't want to throw her under the bus either. That's why I've been very respectful on, what I do. I don't name the place, but I just mention about, the benefits and everything else. That's all. So,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to help her, yes, and I'm learning a little bit of what she does. And she also brings other people on there that are very good and it's knowledgeable. She's very good with the health and everything, but I just think that she's looking very narrowly at just the one thing that she's doing. And if you're teaching and you're not really going out and seeing what's out there, you're probably not learning other things that might be better. So.
Sure. But it's also more complicated than that. Like all my years were working, covering this guy, Dr. Brzezinski, cancer doctors that understood it, oncologists that understood it would even quietly send their patients to him, especially like these really difficult like brain cancer patients, but they would never publicly admit it or support it because they could theoretically, if somebody really wanted to take them down, especially in this case with fetal stem cells, somebody that was really against this for so-called ethical reasons, she could get in a lot of trouble if she publicly supported it. And so it's, their job is on the line as well. It's a little bit of a dictatorship situation in medicine. You cannot, start promoting fetal stem cells, even if you understood it. And if you did, it would have to be on such a personal scale. And certainly you can't put it in an email. Even if you guys are like friendly, you can't put it in writing. It's just kind of their job, It makes their, also think about it. If you were them, think about how much more complicated your life would be if you're spending all this time teaching about mesenchymal umbilical or mesenchymal from an adult. Then you suddenly have this aha moment that fetal far outshines it all, and you also realize, well, I can't do this in the U.S. And imagine if it consumes you to where, what are you going to do? And then you have to fight with your own conscience, knowing that you're, sending people with MS, in this case, for example, neurological, to get umbilical cells that are mesenchymal, knowing they're not going to be helped when they just can get fetal. I don't know. And then that cycle just gets bigger and bigger, and it's very frustrating for the scientists because they can't do it here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. What else do you want to talk about with EmCell and everything?
I think we covered a lot. I always love, it's been a year since I've done one of these. Since I finished 2 movies and a lecture, not that I'm like walking away. This is now a part of my life, at least from a therapeutic standpoint. And again, as I said earlier, since the war began, I want to do all I can to help them. And it seems every time I go, a lot of people go and do really well, like you did. But
I got a question. Have you looked at interviewing anybody with a stroke? Because I think that's also a good one too. I know you did touched on a little bit with the heart attack, the first American being down there. Getting fetal stem cells.
There's one woman. Here's the problem with strokes. There's one woman. I know a guy whose wife had a stroke about 3 years prior, who had nothing. It wasn't a bad stroke, but she had some numbness and some lack of mobility in one of her hands, and this therapy fixed that. But now, when it comes to stroke, in the sense that people have speech impediments, parts of their body are paralyzed, what happens with a stroke is you need to have this therapy ideally like within weeks, not even a month of it occurring, because I had long conversations with him about this. And but if too much time has passed since the stroke, I'm going to oversimplify this because it's a little bit over my head, but basically all of the damage has been set. And it's so difficult to reverse those immobility, speech impediments, all the things that go along with a really bad stroke. So if someone has a stroke, they have to get on a plane, if it were me and I had a stroke, and I say we're talking on the phone now, I fall over, my wife's not home, but she picks me up, takes me to the ER. They say you had a stroke. I would be on a plane tomorrow morning heading to Ukraine because I understand that the only way that's going to potentially reverse it is to introduce those neurological cells as soon as possible. That's the best I can describe it. So that's why you haven't seen me, because most people, like with most things, they don't find out about it until they have a problem where they want to look for something to help them. And, so unless somebody already is very familiar with this therapy, the likelihood of them going there within a week or two of having a bad stroke is very low.
Right.
Yeah.
So with this, if they only have, they can walk a little bit, but there isn't any problem with their speech. Do you know how that is with that? Because I've reached out with EmCell because I have a friend who's had a stroke and everything.
How long
a few
ago?
years back. It would be actually 5 years, and they responded and everything, and they says, okay, let's get on, with the email and everything, and they want to do the eval. I'm trying to get them set up with email and everything with EmCell, and I want to hear what they have to say about it. But they seem encouraged about it because I says, well, he can talk, he can walk a little bit, but he has a little bit, not that much feeling in his foot, and he can't really use his right hand that much. So I'm wondering if that could actually help with that.
Here's how I look at this: is that if there's anything that can potentially improve it, this is the only thing that can. There's that, right? And it's like if the person can afford it and they don't have to like go into debt just to get it, where and I know it's a journey to get there, but like if I was in this person's situation, I would do it. But I just want to manage expectations because when I think about, because I've just seen so many remarkable stories. I mean, I think about like someone like Lawrence with MS went from canes to like walking normally and now got married to a girl 20 years younger than him, right? And the kid with autism never spoke in his life and now talking and but these are situations where people brought in the intervention soon after diagnosis and they stuck with it. But so what I'm saying is if this person goes and has good results and they good enough results where they go back a year later, for example, it could potentially really help them. But I just want to manage expectations based on what I understand about it, Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah. And of course, were they like, let's just say hypothetically they decide to go, would they like want to go with us in June? And if so, could they like navigate the whole train thing and everything? Are they that mobile?
Well, that's the plan that I'm doing actually right now. I'm planning on taking him down. So,
all right.
So this is what I'm trying to work on getting done. So,
all right. And so like you're familiar that there's a private van option as well. You familiar with this?
You had mentioned to me about that in the past. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway,
but are you planning on taking the train?
Yeah. I mean, I've done the van twice and the train 3 times. I'm going to do the train because first of all, my wife gets car sick. Okay. And so, yeah. And there's something nice about the train because you have your own little private room, you get your own bed, and you have a window and there's a bathroom in the car, you just walk down the hall and go to the bathroom. And I don't know, there's just something kind of cool about it. You just kind of sit back. I download a bunch of movies and TV shows to my phone and just, veg out. So, yeah, I prefer the train personally, even though it's much longer.
And you talked about the Intercontinental Hotel.
Yeah.
And about that. Now, how is it? I already know with the hotel that I had stayed at, that's very easy access. Everything's kind of flat. So if I had to, wheel him around with a wheelchair, how is it over there in that area? Is that easy, accessible? Like if you had somebody with a wheelchair just getting around? Okay.
Yeah. That's a really good, thank you for bringing this up. Okay. So Intercontinental, yes, you can. The Intercontinental is the nicest hotel in Kyiv, and it used to be between like $600 and $1,000 a night before the war, and now through a little bit of a EmCell discount, if you would, like a corporate discount, I think you can get it for as cheap as like $250 to $275. But if he needs like a handicapped room, across the street is the Hyatt. It's right across the street, and it's almost like straight out of America. I mean, and they have handicapped rooms, and it's built really because it's a more modern new hotel. The Intercontinental is an old school hotel. It's not old and rickety. It's just old because it's but
just the way it's set up.
I mean, it's really modernized. But there's elevators. I'm trying to think here. Hold on. The only thing that I think the Intercontinental doesn't have is handicap like setup rooms where you have like the bar and the shower and all of that. But the Hyatt does across the street, and they do have a and it's right across the street, and they do have an EmCell discount through that too. If you want me to help you guys book that. I mean, you can have the clinic do it too, of course, but I'm happy to do it because I've got everything. I got all the PDFs. Whatever. I've stayed the Hyatt. I've stayed Intercontinental. I've stayed everywhere. But
yeah, I definitely wanted to ask about that because I know you know that area really well, and I was like, the Sabre Park Hotel. I know that it was just so easy walking around. Like if I was handicapped, this would be easy, But
Yeah.
now that you mention that'd be great. That way, we can hook up later, because I know it was a hard time to get to see you in Kiev itself.
Yeah,
So.
I know. And people that are in the same hotel, because usually we end up seeing each other at breakfast for sure, and then of course at the clinic. And then I always get pulled in many directions. And actually, when we were there this time in August with you, two of our oldest friends were with us. So that kind of took up a lot of our time. And I don't think they're coming this time. So everybody's going to be kind of like you, people that have just had acquaintances like yourself. So far, there's no like close friends that are like, that I've known for 10 years that are going to, take up a lot of our time, are going to be there. Since I've already told EmCell that you're coming, and I told them that's half the reason why I chose the dates is because you're coming then, and to kind of like springboard the whole thing. I'm sure they would give your friend with the stroke a spot, but they generally, if there's somebody not answering the email that already knows about this, my point is you should probably text me this person's name, especially if they're like, you're like more than 50% they're going to go. So I'll say, because what happens is I've had people contact the clinic and they say, dude, they said there's no room left. I'll say, well, did you tell them you're going with me? Like, no. Okay. That's why, so those 3 days, Ben, are blocked off. Like, so I kind of take I assume the role of who's going. I take all the responsibility off of them as far as, who's coming for those 3 days. It just makes their life easier. And I'm good at it at this point. I've done it so many times making this movie. And then of course, they have to handle all the personal medical stuff. Obviously they're doctors, but as far as like, okay, this person's coming, that person's coming. These people are sharing a room. Like for example, are you two sharing a room, or are you going to have separate rooms? Clinic rooms, I mean.
It'd probably be good for me to do it together, honestly, because that way we can, I can videotape him and his experience and everything else.
And the reason I asked that is because, and it's really important because it helps with how many patients they can book. So it's like 10 to 12 patients. So like if you have 10 patients and they all want their own room, that's going to be more difficult than say like 4 of those patients are married couples, or a brother and a brother, or a brother and a sister, or in this case, you and your friend, and I help manage that for them. Because what inevitably happens in the last, especially the last 30-day stretch, is people start really aggressively kind of, I don't want to say fighting over it, but they really like, can I go? I'm like, okay, well, because I also book the trains for everybody. I'll say, okay, we're all on this train. This is where we are all getting arrive. And then I say, okay, this person's staying in this hotel. This person's staying in that hotel. And I'm happy to do it. It just makes life easier, but I'm just trying to make things easier for you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That sounds great. I didn't realize, because I was in the room, I didn't think they could actually have 2 people in there. I knew they could have a guest because they had the couch, but I guess they have beds in there. I know it's been a while since you've seen it, but there was a big family room with 4 beds when I had the mother and the 2 kids, the autistic kid and the other kid. Yeah, that's like this big corner unit room. But they have single rooms and lots of double rooms. Like when my wife and I get the therapy together, we're both in the same room. There's 2 separate beds. So it makes, they're always packed to the capacity, and you guys share a room. It also helps because it's like you might even share the same doctor for all I know. I don't know. And so the doctor goes to you and it goes right over to him. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. That was great.
Yeah.
All right, Eric.
This is awesome. You're a great communicator, and this is just great. I think we've got everything, that anybody would want to hear about this.
I guess just to wrap it up on my body and how everything felt, I had a little bit with, like my knee, especially like my right side. That's actually feels fine. I can bend down. There's like no pain. I have a little stiffness a little bit in my left hip. I think I'll probably ask for maybe a little bit more in that. But hips wise, they're still good. I don't feel like my legs are going to give out. My back has been solid. I used to have a problem with just standing for a few hours, especially on concrete. I would have to sit down because my back would be hurting too much. I noticed that after I had the stem cells, if my back felt like a little tired, not that it was going to give out, I'd maybe even just lie down for maybe 10 minutes and my back felt perfectly fine at that point, where normally I would have to be like, okay, I'm done for the day, and then wait till the next day. But and my shoulders have been good. My wrists have been good. That's actually gotten stronger. When I got that growth shot in the butt, I think that was probably the worst thing I had when I left, because I'm like, when's this going to wear off? Because my butt's sore for 2 days,
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like, okay, but I got stem cells. My body will heal much faster. So, and everything just feels fantastic. If anything is, hurting, I go to sleep the next day. I'm perfectly fine. I can literally jump out of bed, no issues. So
that's fantastic. Yeah, the butt injection, same with me, dude. It hurts for a couple of days. That's the most painful one. But you know what's in there, right? That's sort of like all the like male related. It's male specific, yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah, definitely feel a lot stronger, so it feels good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so very much for taking the time. That's always asked. Anybody listening to this, anything you'd like to share with them? It's in overall in general between both the therapy being rather unusual, if someone's never done it, and of course this turmoil going on in that part of the world. I mean, anything you want to sort of add to anyone that's listening to this?
As much as I probably had a little bit of hesitations, anytime you're going to a new country or a new area that you are not familiar with, because that's always scary because you don't know the terrain. The fact that I just got to talk to you about it before I went, that really helped me with the reassurance about, okay, the war is far away, won't have to worry about it. And just the logistics on how to get there, that helped tremendously because it's not like you can hop on a plane and then just they pick you up. Maybe that day will be coming before we go, but in the meantime, just the fact that you coordinate everything makes it much more easy. So I definitely had that stress-free. And then once I got there, everything was already taken care of. You had EmCell, you got the discount for the hotel, and they give you a packet as soon as they pick you up from the train station, and it has all the information of what time they're going to pick you up. You really don't have to worry about anything at that point. Once you're there, you're taken care of. They take you there, and they bring you back to your hotel, and then you just look for where you want to go, get stuff to eat. And if you don't know, you can always, text Eric, and he told me about the restaurant, and that's where I basically stayed, and it was great. And then when it came time to go back, my driver took me to my train on scheduled time, and then I was off to Poland, and then I got my flight coming back home, and it was great. It was pretty easy.
That's great. Yeah, as far as, by the way, when because you stayed at the favorite park, the Hyatt, because you're going to stay like where all the action is, and I mean that in a good way. There's so much to see in that neighborhood, especially in June. And I'll be at the Intercontinental. Anyway, I know you'll be with your friend. He has some mobility issues, but if you wanted to escape, I can show you some really fun stuff. That's very short walking distance.
That was the only thing I wish I got to see when I was there, because there was so much to see in Kyiv that I didn't get to see where I was staying.
Yeah.
But again, I try to get a cheap hotel, make it convenient, very easy. I was close to the EmCell. And but this time, my second round, I would like to be actually in the center of action.
Yeah.
Where you can see all the beauty of Kyiv itself.
Yeah, and you thought the food was good where you were. Wait till you get some of these restaurants over here. Yeah.
Even when I'm eating there and you go in for breakfast, there's so many selections. And you can see, I go, wow, these eggs, I know what eggs look like from the farm. These have that golden look of the eggs compared to what you get from the store.
That deep yellow, that really deep yellow orange.
Deep yellow, gold yellow.
Yeah.
And I'm usually not eating eggs because I gave it up, because it just kind of flares up your body. But I was really enjoying myself with the food. I said, okay, I'm here. I'm just going to eat this stuff. And it's great. And I'm going to sample a little bit, If my body starts feeling a little weird, then I'll stop. But otherwise, the food was fantastic.
Yeah.
So many choices.
Well, you'll love the Hyatt breakfast. It's really good. What? Sorry.
And the people there too. I had no problem because I can't speak any Ukrainian. There was no problem with English. Even when I went to the regular grocery store, it was pretty simple. There wasn't too much communication with that part. But I think getting exchange, I got the money exchange. That went pretty well too. Even though the person couldn't communicate with me in English that well, it still went pretty well. And the hotel, you don't have to worry about anything because there's always someone there that can communicate to you in English for whatever you need.
Yeah. No, it's great. And especially in the area of the Hyatt and the Intercontinental, it's even more so because there's so much more. So you'll see. Awesome. Thanks, Ben. This is awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
Thank you. We finally got to do the podcast. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew it would happen eventually. It just, and here we are. So.
All right. So
All right,
I'm looking forward to seeing you in June.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you in June. And if you need me to help you with the trains or anything, because we have a long time to wait, but you can't really, I don't know if, I think I told you, I have a special connection with private sleeper cars that you can't get online.
Thank you, Eric.
Hey, my pleasure.
So much. we'll be in contact more about details and everything about that. So.
Yeah, let's stay in touch. I really enjoy doing it. Since it's only a once a year thing now, I get really excited. I love helping people. I love the whole thing.
Great. Yeah, all right. It's a blessing that you're able to help people with this, so it's great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Eric. So
all right.
Great talking to you, and we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Talk soon.
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. That was episode 22 of the God Cells podcast. Again, because I'm only going once a year nowadays, you have a once a year opportunity to join me and my wife in Kyiv, Ukraine at EmCell if you want to go. While we are there, of course. Whether it's your first time ever going and you feel more comfortable being with a seasoned, experienced person who has made this journey during the war, now going to be 5 times, or you have been there with me in the past, or you have been there with me on your own and just want to join me, let me know. Shoot me an email, eric@ericmarola.com. That's ERIC@ERICMEROLA.com. And so many people that follow my work on fetal stem cells don't realize that I have made 7 documentaries. The other 5 have nothing to do with fetal stem cells at all. You can see my work at ericmarola.com. I have them all there with links. Most of it's available for free on YouTube. Some of it's on Apple TV. Some of it's on Amazon Prime. So anyway, until next time, and maybe I'll see some of you in Kyiv. This has been episode 22 of the God Cells podcast.